Bills Mafia, buckle up because day 6 of training camp just handed us 2 headlines that have been building for weeks. And if you've been holding your breath waiting for answers, today you finally get them. One story is going to make you smile. The other one is going to make you exhale a sigh of relief you didn't even know you were holding in. And by the end of this video, I think you're going to walk away feeling a whole lot better about where this Buffalo Bills team is heading into the 2026 season. Let's start with the name that had Bills fans nervously refreshing their phones the moment the news broke. CJ Gardner-Johnson. The veteran safety went down with a lower body injury back on August 1st, and for a few days, nobody really knew what to think. Was it serious? Was it a multi-week thing? Was Buffalo's secondary about to take a hit before the season even started? Well, on Thursday, Gardner-Johnson answered every one of those questions the best way possible by walking right back out onto that practice field and diving straight into full 11-on-11 work. Not a jog, not a light stretch on the side. Full contact drills right in the mix with his teammates. And here's the part that should really put a smile on your face. Gardner-Johnson didn't just say he was fine. He said he feels 100% ready to go, even though he was still wearing a sleeve on that right leg as a precaution. Head coach Joe Brady had actually teased some good news about the injury earlier in the week. But he was smart about it. He didn't throw out some specific return date and put pressure on the recovery. He simply said every player heals differently, and that patience was going to be the plan. Gardner-Johnson echoed that same energy. He talked about trusting the process, trusting the training staff, and following the plan they laid out for him. And get this, he actually said the Bills' training staff has been more honest and more trustworthy than some other stops he's had in his career. When a veteran who's been through 8 NFL training camps tells you that, you pay attention. That's not just a player being nice for the cameras. That's a guy who's seen how other organizations operate and is telling you Buffalo is doing it right. But here's what really stood out to me. The second Gardner-Johnson got back on that field, he wasn't just trying to ease back in and stay quiet. He was coaching up his teammates. He was talking, encouraging, directing traffic like a guy who understands his value goes way beyond just making a tackle or breaking up a pass. That's leadership. That's exactly the kind of presence a defense wants heading into a season where expectations are through the roof. And don't worry, he still kept his sense of humor about it too, joking that he needs to actually start catching the interceptions that come his way instead of dropping them. Classic CJ. So that's storyline number 1, and it's a genuinely encouraging one. But now let's get into the story that has had Bills Mafia buzzing, whispering, and yeah, let's be honest, a little bit worried. Tyler Bass. If you're a Bills fan, you already know the pain behind this name. A year ago, Tyler Bass was fighting through a sports hernia and a brutal pelvic injury, trying to gut his way through the preseason. His last game action came against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back on August 23, 2025, where he actually went 3 for 4 on field goals and drilled both of his extra points. But behind the scenes, his body was breaking down. He couldn't shake the pain, and eventually the team made the tough call to place him on injured reserve before the regular season even kicked off. Just like that, one of the most reliable legs in franchise history was gone for the entire year. And that's not an exaggeration when I say reliable. Before that injury, Tyler Bass had appeared in all 83 games over his first 5 NFL seasons. 83 straight. He converted 131 of 155 field goal attempts, good for an 84.5% success rate, and he was money on extra points too, hitting 264 of 274 for a ridiculous 96.4% clip. This is not a guy who needed to prove he could kick in the NFL. This is a guy who needed to prove his body could hold up again after everything it went through. So you can imagine the tension Bills fans were feeling watching the first 5 practices of training camp go by without a single public field goal attempt from Tyler Bass. 5 practices. No kicks. And when you combine that silence with the memory of last year's injury, it's only natural that people started asking the question out loud. Is something wrong again? Is there a setback nobody's talking about? Well, here's where I want to pump the brakes on the panic, because according to special teams coordinator Jeff Rodgers, there was nothing sinister going on. No setback, no hidden injury. The delay was completely by design. Buffalo simply hadn't reached the point in their training camp schedule where they wanted to run extensive field goal situations in a live game-like environment. Through those first 5 practices, the coaching staff was prioritizing kickoffs and punts, while field goal protection work was being handled during lower-intensity walkthrough periods. Rodgers explained it in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. There's only so much you can accomplish in a single practice, and full-speed field goal protection doesn't replicate well in a normal training camp setting the way it does in an actual game. So they used the walkthroughs to build that foundation first. And then Thursday arrived, and everything changed. For the first time publicly, Tyler Bass stepped onto the field and started kicking field goals in front of fans and media. He started at 35 yards and gradually worked his way back to 51 yards, and by every account, he showed a strong, confident leg. Bass himself said his body feels good, but he was also honest that there's still more work to do. This isn't a switch you just flip back on overnight after missing a full season. There's another layer to this story that Bills fans need to understand, and it's just as important as the health question. Tyler Bass is essentially starting over from scratch when it comes to chemistry with his holder. Buffalo has 2 new names handling that job this year: Mitch Wishnowsky, who punted for the team last season, and Tommy Doman Jr., a 7th-round pick out of Florida in the 2026 draft. Bass gave both guys credit for the job they've been doing, but he also made sure to point out just how much easier his long snapper Reed Ferguson makes his life, calling him the best in the league at his position. When your kicker is bragging about his snapper like that, that's a good sign for chemistry up front. And this is exactly why Jeff Rodgers has been so deliberate about the entire process. He's not rushing Tyler Bass just because Bills fans are anxious to see him kick. Rodgers laid out the philosophy himself: you don't skip steps. It starts from ground zero. You build comfort with the snapper and the holder first, you get the repetitions in, and then you gradually put the player into game-like environments, step by step, until he's ready for the real thing on Sundays. Bass echoed that same sentiment, saying the entire organization, from Joe Brady down to Jeff Rodgers, has been supportive throughout this whole process, and that he believes they've done a great job bringing him back at exactly the right pace. So let's connect the dots here, because I think this is the real story buried underneath all the speculation. Tyler Bass isn't dealing with some new mystery injury. He's not hiding anything from Bills fans. What's actually happening is a football organization being smart, patient, and deliberate with an athlete who is coming off a devastating, season-ending injury. They didn't want to throw him into high-pressure field goal reps before his body and his new holders were ready. They wanted him healthy first. They wanted him comfortable first. And now, gradually, piece by piece, they're building him back up to game speed. There's actually one more milestone coming that has Bills Mafia extremely excited. Tyler Bass is expected to get his very first opportunity to kick inside Buffalo's brand new Highmark Stadium during Saturday night's Blue-Red practice. Think about the symbolism there for a second. A guy who spent all of last season fighting through pain just to watch from the sideline is now about to kick in a brand new stadium in front of Bills fans as he works his way back toward being the guy this team can count on in January. Now look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything is guaranteed to be perfect. Kicker is one of the most mentally brutal positions in all of sports. One bad month, one shanked kick in a big moment, and suddenly the entire fan base is holding its breath every time he jogs onto the field. That's just the reality of this position, especially after everything Tyler Bass went through last season. But based on everything coming out of Jeff Rodgers' mouth and everything Tyler Bass himself is saying, this doesn't look like a player who's struggling. This looks like a player and a coaching staff who are handling a comeback the right way. And honestly, the good news didn't stop at special teams. Thursday's practice was loaded with plays that should get any Bills fan fired up for the season. Let's talk about the secondary for a second, because the cornerbacks were putting on a show. Undrafted rookie Connor Watson locked up fellow rookie wide receiver Skylar Bell early. Then Jordan Hancock, just 22 years old and entering his second season, absolutely took over. After giving up a couple of early catches, Hancock flipped the switch completely, blowing up a blitz against running back Ian Wheeler, and then, in one of the best plays of the entire day, going up against tight end Kylan Liu, who had a 7-inch height advantage on him, and coming down with a clutch interception in the end zone. Christian Benford wasn't far behind, picking off a pass against DJ Moore after Moore slipped on the wet turf, and earlier in practice, breaking up a deep shot against Keon Coleman with a perfectly timed swat at the catch point. Maxwell Hairston chipped in too, breaking up 2 separate passes against McCole Hardman Jr. That cornerback room is absolutely stacked with competition right now, and that's exactly what you want heading into the season. And then there's Josh Allen, because of course there's Josh Allen. On one of his 11-on-11 reps, Allen spotted Dante Pettis streaking down the field with safety Geno Stone in coverage, and he decided to just let it fly. The ball traveled deep down the sideline to a spot where only Pettis could realistically make the play, and somehow Pettis went backward, extended his arms, and hauled it in for one of the most ridiculous touchdown catches you'll see in a training camp setting. Later, even as the rain started picking up, Allen found DJ Moore on the sideline, who slipped through a tackle attempt and turned it into another explosive touchdown. Even in the rain, even in sloppy conditions, this offense is finding ways to make jaw-dropping plays. And up front, Ed Oliver was an absolute problem for Buffalo's offense all day. He blew up a screen pass and got a hand on the football to knock it down. On the very next series, he beat his blocker again for what would have been a sack in a real game. And then, just to put an exclamation point on his day, he blew up a handoff to James Cook and met him almost immediately in the backfield for a tackle for loss. At 28 years old, Oliver continues to look completely comfortable and disruptive inside defensive coordinator Mike Leonard's system. And if he keeps playing like that, it's going to make life a whole lot easier for everybody else on that defense. So when you step back and look at everything that happened on day 6 of Bills training camp, I think there are 2 big takeaways for Bills Mafia. First, CJ Gardner-Johnson getting back into full 11-on-11 work is genuinely great news for a defense that needs his experience, his playmaking ability, and his leadership in that locker room. And second, Tyler Bass is finally back kicking publicly, and everything we're hearing from both Bass himself and special teams coordinator Jeff Rodgers is far more reassuring than the speculation that had been building over the first 5 practices. But I'll be honest with you, the pressure doesn't disappear just because Tyler Bass finally kicked in public. If anything, it ramps up from here. Every single kick he takes from this point forward is going to be watched closely. Every miss is going to spark a reaction. Every make is going to build a little more confidence. That's just the reality of being an NFL kicker who missed an entire season, especially on a team with Super Bowl expectations. But I'm choosing to let this process play out the right way. I want to see Tyler Bass build that rhythm with Mitch Wishnowsky and Tommy Doman Jr. I want to see him get more comfortable with every single rep. And more than anything, I want to see him walk into that regular season completely convinced that he's ready to be the guy this team leans on when a game is on the line. Because if Tyler Bass really can get back to being the kicker Bills Mafia watched during those first 5 seasons of his career, that is a massive piece of the puzzle for a Buffalo Bills team that is chasing something this franchise hasn't touched in decades. And when you combine that with CJ Gardner-Johnson looking healthy and locked in, and Ed Oliver who looks unstoppable up front, a secondary that's fighting and competing every single day, and a Josh Allen who's still out there making jaw-dropping throws even in the pouring rain, there's a lot to be excited about right now. So here's what I want from you, Bills Mafia. Are you feeling good about Tyler Bass now that you've finally seen him kick publicly? Or Are you the type who needs to see it happen in an actual preseason game before you're fully comfortable? And what did you think about CJ Gardner-Johnson jumping straight back into full contact work? Drop your thoughts down in the comments because I know this fan base always has plenty to say. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button. And if you're one of those real Bills fans who genuinely believes this is the year Buffalo finally gets over that final hurdle and reaches the Super Bowl, then hit subscribe and help us build this community from the very beginning. Let's keep talking Bills football. Let's keep watching every single detail of this training camp together. And hopefully, when that Super Bowl moment finally arrives, we can all look back and say we were here from the start.